In this video, Reddit users will share moments when they were on the cusp of death.
The rusty chain hung innocently, a sinister clothesline strung across the trail. I never saw it coming. At 25 miles per hour, my dirt bike and I became a projectile aimed directly at that rusty snare. Wham! The world exploded in a symphony of pain and roaring metal. The chain, thicker than my wrist, caught me square across the neck. It wasn't a gentle stop. It was a brutal, near decapitation. My arteries and windpipe, shocked by the sudden betrayal, ripped apart like cheap fabric. The next thing I remember is the dizzying whirl of helicopter blades chopping at the sky above. A determined face hovered over me, a voice, urgent and insistent, battling the encroaching darkness. "Stay with me. Don't you dare fall asleep." He sounded like a frantic coach trying to keep his star quarterback in the game. I fought. God, I fought. But the siren call of oblivion was too strong. Peaceful darkness began to creep in at the edges. It wasn't terrifying, it was welcoming, like sinking into a warm bath after a long, brutal day. Just sleep, and then nothing. I blinked, confused, disoriented. Where was I? A blurry, antiseptic-smelling room swam into focus for a fleeting second. Had I been asleep? Then, poof. Darkness swallowed me whole again. When I finally surfaced, it was like clawing my way back from the bottom of a well. A plastic tube invaded my throat, stealing my voice and adding to the surreal nightmare. I was in a hospital bed, bandaged like a mummy, vaguely aware of the beeping and hushed whispers around me. The rusty chain, the helicopter, the insistent voice. Had it all been a terrible dream? Weeks later, shuffling down the hospital corridor during recovery, I saw them. The pilot, his face etched with the memory of that frantic flight. And the medic, the owner of that life-saving voice. It was like meeting angels in scrubs. They weren't just faces from a near-death hallucination. They were real, and they had pulled me back from the brink. I owed them everything. I owed them my life.
23 years old. Invincible, right? That's what I thought. 1 minute I'm feeling a bit dizzy, like I'd spun around too many times on a childhood merry-go-round. I sat down, figuring it would pass. The next, a wave of pure, unadulterated peace washed over me. It was a tranquility I'd never known, a profound sense of comfort, like sinking into a cloud of warm honey. And then, nothing. Just a blank canvas, a void where the universe used to be. Turns out my heart had decided to take a vacation, an unscheduled, unpaid, and utterly terrifying vacation. Luckily, someone nearby knew CPR and started pounding on my chest like they were trying to tenderize a particularly stubborn steak. Each compression, though I wasn't aware of it then, was a brutal but necessary act, keeping the faintest flicker of life alive within me. It was a stopgap, a desperate plea to hold back the encroaching darkness until the cavalry arrived. The cavalry in this case was a pair of paramedics and a defibrillator, buzzing with raw electrical energy. Zap! The jolt that jump-started my heart back into a reluctant rhythm felt like being kicked by a mule. In the chest. From the inside. Waking up in the hospital was like being ripped from a peaceful dream and thrown into a thrashing metal concert. Everything ached. My ribs screamed in protest, my chest felt like it had been used as a punching bag, and my throat was raw. Apparently, proper CPR isn't a gentle caress. It's a violent, necessary act of desperation. It's a controlled demolition on your chest to rebuild your life. And while I felt like I'd gone a few rounds with a heavyweight boxer, I was alive. Bruised, battered, and bewildered, but undeniably alive. And for that, I was eternally grateful for the stranger who pounded on my chest like a madman, and the paramedics who brought me back from the abyss.
1 minute I'm feeling lousy, the next, the world is a blurry kaleidoscope of flashing lights and concerned faces. Turns out a rogue carrot, or at least the microscopic monster hitching a ride on it, had decided my colon was the perfect breeding ground for its infectious army. Sepsis, the doctors called it, like some sinister villain in a medical drama. My body, overwhelmed, plunged into fever and shock. The ambulance ride was a hazy memory, a disorienting symphony of sirens and bumps in the road. Then came the hospital, the flurry of activity as they hooked me up to a network of beeping machines, tubes, and wires, a technological spiderweb meant to keep me tethered to the world of the living. But the web snapped. In what felt like the blink of an eye, my vitals vanished. Flatline, the ultimate system crash. And as if adding insult to near-fatal injury, let's just say my dignity took a hit along with my heart. The next thing I remember is waking up to the sight of my ex-fiancée, her face streaked with tears. Confused, disoriented, and slightly embarrassed, I croaked out, "Did I faint? And, did I have an accident?" Her reply hit me like a defibrillator paddle to the chest. "No. For a minute, you died." Turns out, while I was taking an unscheduled trip to the other side, the nurses had performed a frantic ballet of CPR, pounding on my chest, desperately trying to coax my heart back into rhythm. They'd succeeded, pulling me back from the brink, but not without a price. The memory of the whole episode is as blank as the time I went under for surgery, a chilling reminder of how close I came to a permanent blackout. I still have the pajamas I wore home from the hospital, a tangible souvenir of my brief sojourn into the land of the dead. And while I'm physically fine now, I can't help but wonder about the invisible scars. Did that fleeting moment of oblivion leave a deeper mark on my heart than on my brain? It's a question I may never fully answer. A lingering echo of the day, a rebellious carrot almost ended it all.
My aorta, the granddaddy of all arteries, decided to stage a revolt. A dissection, they called it. A dramatic, life-threatening tear in its inner wall. To fix the rebellious vessel, they had to do the unthinkable. Shut off the blood and oxygen supply to my brain. For 4.5 minutes, my gray matter was on a forced sabbatical. A chilling thought that still sends shivers down my spine. It was during this precarious intermission that the surgeon called my wife, delivering the gut-wrenching news that he didn't know if I'd make it through. Me? I was blissfully unaware, lost in the silent, dreamless void of induced unconsciousness. 6 hours later, I blinked awake, a little groggy, like after a heavy nap. The breathing tube, however, was a rude awakening. Within an hour, I'd ripped it out myself, scaring the wits out of a poor, unsuspecting janitor who happened to be sweeping the floor. "Hey," I probably slurred, "a little privacy here?" But the drama wasn't over. A few days later, sepsis, the insidious infection, decided to crash the party. And let me tell you, sepsis was far worse than the aortic dissection. That night, I danced on the edge of oblivion. Imagine walking across a bed of burning coals while wearing gasoline-soaked clothes. That was sepsis. My veins felt like molten tar, each heartbeat a searing pulse of agony. Every second of existence was an inferno, and I yearned for the sweet release of extinction. In the depths of that fiery torment, something extraordinary happened. I met myself, not my ego, not some psychedelic hallucination, but the raw, unfiltered essence of my being. My id, perhaps? It was a silent conversation, a primal understanding. "Can you make it?" the essence of me seemed to ask. I could hear the frantic efforts of the medical team, their desperate fight to keep me anchored to this world. I knew that surrendering to the darkness would be easy, a blissful end to the agonizing burn. But it was a choice nonetheless. I retreated into some inner sanctuary, a quiet space within the storm, and clung on. Clung on to the whispers of life, the faint hope of seeing another dawn. And a few days later, the inferno began to subside. The sepsis retreated, leaving behind a scorched landscape of exhaustion and the profound realization of how close I'd come to the precipice. I was out cold from sepsis for almost 3 times, as long as I was out for open-heart surgery. Many believe death only comes when there's no chance of return. But the medical team who wrestled me back from the abyss, twice in 1 week, told me a different story. They said I'd stared into the face of true death, and they dragged me kicking and screaming back into the land of the living. 2 brushes with the ultimate darkness, 2 victories snatched from the jaws of oblivion, and a renewed appreciation for the incredible people who refuse to let me go.
The scalpel had done its work, the surgery a success. My mom, poised on the cusp of waking, was meant to receive a gentle nudge from pain medication, a soft transition back to consciousness. Instead, a chilling error unfolded. A paralytic agent meant to still muscles coursed through her veins. It seized her body in its icy grip, silencing not just the tremors of post-operative pain, but the very beat of her heart. Trapped within her own failing body, she knew she was dying, every muscle locked, every breath stolen, even her voice imprisoned. Imagine the terror of knowing you're slipping away, unable to cry out, unable to fight back against the encroaching darkness. Then nothing. But in that nothingness, something remarkable happened. She saw it. The tunnel bathed in an ethereal white light, a beacon drawing her in. Then a shift in perspective, an out-of-body experience that defied explanation. From a vantage point high in the corner of the operating room, she looked down and saw herself lifeless, lying on the table below. Not a horrific vision, but a strangely peaceful tableau. Not a terrifying plunge into the abyss, but a gentle homecoming. In the nick of time, the medical team realized their horrific mistake. Frantic, they battled to restart her heart, to pull her back from the brink. They succeeded, but those stolen minutes had imprinted something profound on her soul. My mom, a pragmatist, a woman of science and logic, never believed in the supernatural. She scoffed at tales of near-death experiences, of tunnels of light and afterlife whispers. Yet here she was, bearing witness to something she couldn't explain, an experience that challenged her very understanding of reality. And the most unsettling part, her account echoed countless others, stories whispered in hushed tones, tales of peaceful transitions and otherworldly encounters. The sheer number of similar narratives made it hard to dismiss. Her experience, coupled with the chilling echo of so many others, has left me questioning, wondering, what if there's more than we know? What if that peaceful homecoming is waiting for us all?
That's it. I wish you never to get into such situations. Well, if you have similar stories, leave them in the comments. Good luck and bye-bye.